Okay, well, thanks, Pat. That's really exciting to be here in person finally to see everyone here on the campus of Trinity College. So excited. And as Pat said, we're starting this new workshop series, our Future Networks workshop series. We want to do this about every 6 months, focusing on different research areas in the Connect Center. And so Sustainable IoT, I want to go over a little bit about the research landscape and talk about Connect for those who aren't familiar. So the Connect Center, we're just across the road here on Westland Road. We have our center there. It's not fully open. We hope to be more open as time goes by and safety permits, and hope to welcome everyone there at some point in the very near future. So Connect is a research center made up of multiple universities. Not just Trinity College, but we've got 10 universities across all of Ireland. And there's over 16 principal investigators and 250 researchers in Connect. So it's quite a large center focusing on future networks and communications. We do much of our research with industry. So we work with many multinational corporations, small and medium enterprises, and local government authorities, and especially in this IoT area that we're going to talk about today. Now, one of the flagship programs that we have, especially related to IoT, is the Smart Docklands program. This is a partnership between Connect and Dublin City Council. It's been extremely successful. Just to highlight, the Docklands area itself is a rapidly growing dynamic innovation center in Ireland. It's already accounting for 9% of the GDP of Ireland, and there's over 52 projects there, highly successful smart city projects. Now, much of what we do there, though, in terms of research, is focused around the Enable project. And this is a program that's led by Siobhan Clark, and it brings together our research, not just in the Smart Docklands, but across all of Ireland on smart cities and smart communities. And as the title here indicates, connecting communities to smart urban environments through IoT. And so we can't do that with networks alone. We need the software and we need data analytics. And so we partner with 2 other Science Foundation Ireland centers, the Insight Center, which focuses on the analytics side of things, and Lero, which is the software center. And so we created this framework where we can bring these centers together, the full range of expertise to tackle these sort of smart city IoT related problems, and then work closely with industry on realizing these in a smart city environment. Now, when we talk about IoT, and especially in the smart city environment, so what does that mean? So the Internet of Things, well, the things are all these sensors, monitors that you would put around a city, in your home, that to help you control the environment, to control your energy use, and achieve sustainability. Now, in general, the research in this space involves, number one, gathering data through these monitors and so forth, and collecting it over the network. So that's your Internet of Things. And then we need to analyze the data. And then often there's also an actuation component to that, where you might control the temperature in a building or have some other controls that would then improve the environment. And importantly, in Connect, we're not just looking at the IoT cycle here, but we're also engaging with the community, because we want to understand how this Internet of Things that we're putting together is impacting the people who are using it. And so we engage with the citizens, the community, and they see how well that works, as well as then giving us input and telling us, well, what's something else to monitor, what's something else that we can do to improve sustainability across society. This model has been very successful, and we've seen a growing number of these smart districts just in Dublin alone. So we have a number of smart districts in here, not just the Smart Docklands. So there's Smart Sandyford and Balbriggan now, and Dublin 8 as well. But it's also beyond Dublin, so across Ireland, so Cork and other places. And this is just a sampling of some of the collection of projects that we've been doing with different companies, Intel and Huawei and RouteMatch, as well as the government authorities such as Cork and DAA at the airport, and also Dublin City Council. So I mentioned community engagement. So you can see here some examples of, we have citizen science programs. We have different experiences for young people, as well as webinars to keep the communities informed, as well as gathering feedback from the communities in Cork and Sandyford and across Dublin. Now, importantly, people in the community, they need to understand these technologies. They need to know how to use them and to actually, I would say, govern them in a way that's going to be meaningful for their communities. And we're doing that starting with young people in school, and we have this Academy of the Near Future program where we educate them so that they will have awareness of the technologies and trust in the technologies. And we need trust more than ever in our technologies. And it should be technology that's by and for the people in these communities. And this is a step towards that direction. Now, underneath these smart communities across Ireland, well, we started by building an IoT network, and it's a low power wireless access network. So the low power to help achieve sustainability. And importantly, this is not just in Dublin, but it's across all of Ireland. That's why we call it the Pervasive Nation Network. And you can see, so again, the Internet of Things. Well, we have smart bins. We do monitoring for floods and pollution, smart agriculture, and we're able to collect the data through this type of network. And in this case, though, it's a research network. And so it's not a commercial network. So what we're trying to do is understand how we can do this better as a center. And so you can bring your various devices and to our gateways. So we offer different gateways, and we provide backhaul to our data center, which our data center is primarily located at Waterford. And then you can get your data out. And we can look at, because we would control each step along the way here, we can do quite a bit with it, much more than you could do in any type of commercial network. And importantly, you can do things like we can put packet forwarding in our access points and then create a private network for one of our industry partners so that they can see how a certain technology works over their network. Or we can create our own research backhaul on top of this network. Or we can take out those gateways altogether and connect directly to a next generation gateway that we might deploy in the network somewhere. And these are the types of things that we can do in this research network environment. Now, you can say that, well, if we're able to deploy these next generation gateways, can we do more with that? And indeed we can, and we're starting to do that in terms of we're creating what we call the Open Ireland testbed. Now, this is being led by Marco Ruffini at Trinity College, and this is a dark fiber-based testbed. So we control all the technology stack. We can do research on all layers of the network in this environment. And so we can, because we have control of that, we're not limited by commercial offerings. We can go for very advanced, high-performance technologies that you can't do anywhere else. And that's really one of the highlights of this Open Ireland testbed. And we're really excited to announce today that we have a license with Comreg for 100 megahertz spectrum in the kind of upper, what we call sub 6G bands. And this is for non-commercial research purposes. So again, our various research projects can take a look at that spectrum. Primarily, we're looking at Open RAN technologies, which again can be supporting an Internet of Things type architecture. And one of the biggest challenges that we find for IoT networks is, well, they have to connect to the things in the communities. And so you can't, it's not a laboratory environment. The infrastructure has to fit in a seamless way within these communities. And so we've been, again, working with Dublin City Council and then engaging with the Telecom Infra Project, which is a large consortium of companies. And we created this working group, the Connected City Infrastructure Working Group, that's trying to understand what are those challenges in terms of getting this technology into the city and doing it the right way so that it gets the performance and is sustainable and works with the communities and is accepted and trusted by the communities. So there's, in addition to this kind of smart city focus, a lot of IoT is looking at vehicles, right, and drones and other mobile devices. So we have another project with two other research, Lero and Insight again, it's called Blended Autonomous Vehicles. And in this case, Lero is the lead center on this, but we're working on the connected and collaborative automotive systems within this project. And it's just one of a number of research themes that we have within Connect. So there's 6 different major research themes within the Connect Center. And what we're going to focus on today, as I mentioned, is the Sustainable IoT, which is a research theme in Connect. So we'll be looking at this slice of the pie of the Connect Center. And so let me start out by talking a little bit about sustainability in the internet more generally. So often we look at information and communication technologies as a whole, and people have asked the question, well, what's the carbon footprint of that? And for example, the Global E-Sustainability Initiative, they have their Smart 2030 project where they even try to project into the future what that total carbon footprint would be. And actually they're predicting that it might actually even go down compared to what it is today. But in general, it sits around 2%. The ICT as a whole, that's the devices as well as the data centers and the networks, makes up 2% of the global carbon footprint. And that's it appears to be staying relatively stable over the years. Now, but what you see here is that the end user devices, and not just user devices, but the things in the Internet of Things, make up 50% of that carbon footprint. So that's a huge part of the carbon in ICT as a whole. But networks is still another 25% of that, on par with data centers. A lot of focus is being placed on data centers and not as much on the network. And so we're here to focus on the network and see what we can do there. And another important part of this story is, and the Global E-Sustainability Initiative, this is what they primarily focused on. They see a potential to save as much as 9 times of the networks or ICT's footprint through these different sustainability capabilities of ICT. So return on investment 9 times in terms of the carbon footprint impact. So that's a tremendous potential, but this is just a potential, and they're predicting by 2030 if we do all the right things. So the question is, what are the right things to do? And importantly, a number of other studies have pointed to some alarm bells in terms of network energy use. So there is some work here that is showing that the network energy use, this is electricity use, is growing much faster than for PCs and data centers. Now, we don't know the exact cause of that, but I would speculate that there's quite a bit of focus on making PCs and data centers more energy efficient. People aren't necessarily paying attention to the network, but the network, in this case, looking all the way back to 2014, potentially is using more energy than the data centers and PCs altogether. Now, it's hard to get a firm estimate of that, but this is some intriguing data that we need to pay attention to. So clearly, we have a challenge here, right? So how do we build an IoT, an Internet of Things, that is sustainable while delivering on the sustainable solutions that we want across society and providing us with the security, privacy, mobility, all of these other aspects that we need so much? So there's 3 main points that I want to emphasize here and reiterate for you. So when you think about sustainable IoT, think about the sustainable networks for smart cities, for smart technologies, the network connecting those. How do we make that sustainable? But there's a potential there to offset or reduce the carbon footprint across all of society. That's 9 times the expected footprint of these ICT technologies, 9 times that of sustainable IoT, of IoT itself. So in order to tap into that, we need to make our IoT sustainable as well. But the number of things in this network and the network energy use itself are rapidly growing. So we need to do something to address that. And that's the focus of our workshop here today. So this leads me into the agenda. We've got a great program of speakers and events today. So we have a number of keynote speakers that we've invited from for example, Technical University of Darmstadt, as well as some industry partners at Cellnex and VMware. So we'll hear everything from basic research to more applied and industry programs. And we have also talks from startup companies, as well as many of the research groups across the Connect Center who are working on different aspects of this. We'll also have a poster session right before lunch, and we'll be serving lunch here, and before we go into our two main keynotes right after lunch. Now, before we get into the program, there's just for our industry folks in the audience, want to mention that the Connect Center was just received a new round of funding from the Science Foundation Ireland this year. We have 12 million euros that they've given us to use for industry projects. Basically, it's matching money, and on a first come, first served basis. Okay, so and that's money that we have to apply to research projects, and so it's a great way to collaborate and try to address these sustainability issues for IoT. Also, our industry team, so Mark Cooney and Martin Johnson are available to help with Enterprise Ireland funding for our industry partners and different programs. And then for Horizon Europe as well, we have a funding diversification team. David Fitzpatrick and Ruth Baker are able to help with Horizon Europe projects. So we'd love to work with industry on that. And in general, we want you to think of Connect as a one-stop shop for all the different research funding opportunities, both in Ireland and across Europe. Okay, and with that, I'm going to hand back over to Pat.
Thanks, Dan. I can take a few questions. We have time for a few questions from the audience. I need to get the boom microphone. So any questions?
Like that.
Can I hold it? Hi. Thanks, Dan. Sorry, I can hold it, Pat. No, on the network, saving energy in the network and a sustainable network, and that reminds us of the concept of the black and white internet. And where would that, the fact that, younger people are exploring the idea that if you browse the internet or you use Snapchat in black and white, you're saving energy on the process side. But is there any research, might be a bit out there, but is there any research on the network side, how you could control, the data rates and reduce the data rates if people have browsers that are configured differently? I know it's a kind of out there kind of a question, but I just thought it might be interesting. Maybe nobody's looked at it yet, but in mechanical engineering, we have a spin out in Trinity Nexus that I'm not involved in, just it's not a plug, but they do cooling systems for energy harvesting in data centers, but they're really excited about this concept of the black and white monochrome internet as a way of saving network and data processing energy. Yeah. It's just a thought.
Yeah, so there's many interesting things going on, and certainly it's become clear that we can't have our full capability high performance microprocessors on every little device that we put out there. It's just not sustainable. And the way that people are interacting with the network, we have to figure out ways to configure it so that it'll be more energy efficient and influence behaviors, as you're mentioning. So there's one of the really interesting things that I was excited about was the idea of being able to have applications assigned a carbon footprint associated with their use. And we, as data goes through the network, in general, all the boxes that you hit through that network will track the amount of data that you're using, so the amount of traffic that's going through. And we do that often for funding purposes, right? So we know how much we're serving there. But we could just as easily have each of those boxes report how much energy is used to process that data all along the path. And if the network operator knows whether that box is being run off renewable energy or not, then you could have actually a measure of the renewable energy that is used to process a given Snapchat video or whatever you're doing. And you could start to create actually a marketplace where people could offer network services that are on renewable energy or are more energy efficient and so forth. And so there is some research going on in certain areas for this type of capability. And yeah, so we need to, I'm convinced that there's always a certain amount of waste that goes with just about anything good. Nothing is perfectly efficient. And the key is to make the overall infrastructure more efficient. And I don't know the best way to control behaviors. There's a lot that's policy related there and social science related. And we're certainly keen to work with social scientists to try to understand that dimension of it.
Are there any other questions? Any questions from the floor? If not, I'm going to say thank you, Dan, and I'm going to move on to our next speaker.